4, 3.
Good evening, candidates and audience members. Thank you for attending the League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County's Candidate Forum for the Santa Fe School Board District 2 and the Santa Fe Community College Governing Board. I'm Hannah Burling, and I will be the moderator of the forum tonight. I want to introduce Veronica Nogales from the Santa Fe New Mexican. She's the Community Marketing Manager there.
Thank you for that introduction. Good evening, I'm Veronica Nogales. I'm the Community Manager at the Santa Fe New Mexican. And on behalf of the entire company, we're proud to be part of these candidate forums and appreciate you taking the time to watch from here at the Santa Fe Community College or online at santafenewmexican.com. Newspaper readers are voters, and voters are the heart of community life. A recent survey showed that newspaper readers vote at rates significantly higher than the general public. And at the New Mexican, fully 96% of readers identify themselves as regular voters. So as we look toward Election Day in November, we also look toward the start of a year-long celebration of the New Mexican's 175th anniversary and the legacies we've built, bringing the news to people by telegraph, printing press, website, mobile phone, and now podcast. In whatever form you interact with them, newspapers bolster community ties and give us a common pool of facts from which to understand shared problems and challenges. They provide a foundation for civil public discourse and the means to address our needs. I invite you to follow all the developments in these races in the pages of the Santa Fe New Mexican and online at santafenewmexican.com. The Santa Fe New Mexican will continue its part in the grand scheme of our body politic, bringing you the news where and when you need it. We thank the League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County for their work on this forum, the people here and elsewhere dedicating their time to learn about what's happening in Santa Fe, and for planning to vote on November 7th. Finally, to those who said, "Count me in," and decided to stand for election, please accept our thanks for taking part in our public life. Because if you win this November, it might be the last public thanks you'll not get for a while. With that, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
And on behalf of the Santa Fe County League of Women Voters, I'd like to express our gratitude to the New Mexican for broadcasting our City of Santa Fe candidate forums this year as a service to the community. The New Mexican's no strings attached support over the years has allowed us to provide nonpartisan, authoritative election information to thousands of Santa Fe County voters by publishing our voter guide and by live streaming our candidate forums. The League of Women Voters of New Mexico promotes civil discourse through action and education for all government bodies, staff, and citizens for the purpose of improved public policy decisions and processes. Civil discourse means, at a minimum, mutually respectful, courteous, constructive, and orderly communication. Before I introduce the candidates, I want to review the responsibilities of the Santa Fe School Board and the Santa Fe Community College Board officers. The Santa Fe School Board is responsible for crafting the overall educational vision of the district's public schools, from setting a school's curriculum to creating and upholding board policy, to electing school officials and overseeing administrators. The Santa Fe Community College Governing Board determines financial and educational policies of the college. The board provides for the management of the college, the execution of its policies, and the delegation of the administration to the president and the staff. Please say all other applause until the end of the forum. At that time, you can show your appreciation to the candidates for their participation tonight. now I'm going to introduce them. Starting on my right are the Santa Fe School Board District 2 candidates, Patricia Neal Stockton, John McKenna, and Sarah Bose. Then the Santa Fe Community College Governing Board candidates, Nina German and Lorenzo Dominguez. The candidates have all agreed to follow the leading protocols for candidate forums this evening, including respecting the time limits for their responses and practicing civil discourse, even when they disagree about issues. We'll begin the 2-minute opening statement for each candidate, and then ask them a series of questions submitted by you, the audience, and the audience on Zoom. The candidates will answer questions in rotating order, as many questions as we have time for. Finally, we'll conclude with 2-minute closing statements from the candidates in reverse order from their opening statements. For those of you attending in person, submit your questions on the 3x5 note cards you've been given. One question per note card, and please write legibly. Hold it up when finished so our runners can pick it up from you. For those of you who are attending online, you can email your questions to the santafenewmexican.com/elections now or at any time during the forum. For both in-person and online attendees, feel free to submit more questions anytime during the forum. The questions we ask tonight will be selected by our screening panel to focus on the issues that seem to generate the most interest. There'll be questions specific to the school district board candidates and those specific to the community college governing board candidates, and questions that are appropriate for both races. Questions that are directed to one specific candidate or those that contain a personal attack will be eliminated. I'll be giving the candidates a time limit of 2 minutes or less for their answers, and they've agreed to respect those limits. Our timekeeper, Mary Shrubin, is sitting in the front where you all can see her. When a candidate has 30 seconds left, she will hold up a yellow warning sign. And when the candidate's time is up, she will hold up a red sign. At that point, we ask that you wind up your response immediately. If not, I will interrupt out of fairness to all. We will now begin with 2-minute opening statements by the candidates. First, we will hear from Patricia Neal Stockton, Santa Fe School Board District 2.
Hello everyone, my name is Patricia Neal Stockton. I am a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. I am currently a CFO of Stockton Mechanical. It is a very successful HVAC company that my husband and I own. When we started our company 7 years ago, my vision was to hire, train, and recruit young people that were not college bound. The pandemic occurred and our business grew exponentially because we're essential. So we needed to find workers. We found young men that were high school graduates, and we observed very quickly that their skills were very limited. They could not convert simple fractions. They could not read a tape measure. They could not write legibly. Their spelling was atrocious. And they had a really difficult time reading instructional manuals that are pertinent to our industry. But we stayed the course with them. When I talked to other business owners at this time, they were having the same difficulty with new hires. My mother used to say, if you don't like something or see something, then roll up your sleeves and do something about it. I'm a native Santa Fean. I love our community, our multicultural community. And I decided that I wanted to do something to improve the education that we were giving our children. We need to provide them this education so they can succeed, be successful. So when this opportunity presented itself as an opening, I decided to throw my hat in and run for Santa Fe School.
Thank you. Now we will hear from John McKenna.
Should I get on the mic here? Or? Am I okay without the mic?
Yeah, we're not using the mics.
Okay. So, yeah, John McKenna is my name, and I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and was educated there. And I taught in Catholic schools there for 12 years. And so I really got to see what a school can do with a kid, especially an inner city kid like the kids I had. A lot of inner city kids. Now we could take the toughest kid out of the toughest neighborhood and turn that kid into a real winner. And we did it on a shoestring budget. So I thought, well, what can I bring to the Santa Fe public schools? You know, I wasn't necessarily in the public schools, except for the couple of seasons a couple of years I spent as a substitute teacher here at Santa Fe. And I thought, well, the use of monies, how monies are allocated, where to get monies in terms of the federal money and the state money that comes in to the government. Catholic schools were run on a shoestring budget. We had nothing, absolutely nothing. And my particular high school could get 4 kids into Harvard every single year because we figured out ways to get that done. And we, like I said, we took the toughest kids and turned them around and gave them a fabulous education. So I look at my own country, the United States, this country I love. I look at my state, my chosen state of New Mexico. I'm not from here. I've been here close to 25 years. I love this state, and I love the kids that I've dealt with and seen in my time here. And I'm thinking, why can't New Mexico, why can't Santa Fe produce the same kids that we could produce on the East Coast on a shoestring budget? Yeah, I'm angry. Maybe it's coming off that way. But I think it can be done. And I'd like to throw my hat in the ring, as Patricia used that term, try to see if I can help.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Sarah Bozay.
Hi, I'm Sarah Bozay. I was born and raised here in Santa Fe. I'm the mother of 4 children, 3 of whom attend Santa Fe Public Schools. I'm a nurse by trade. I'm the granddaughter of teachers. My mother-in-law was a teacher. My husband was a teacher. It's something that's very important to me. I'm here because of my service and my faith and my desire to make things better here. I'm driven by love, not by anger or by fear. My love for my community and for public education. I'm inspired because I know the incredible people who work in our schools. I know the children in our communities, and I know the families and folks that surround them. And I think together we can bring about the change that needs to happen. We've made a lot of really great progress, and that work needs to continue. I don't think anybody thinks that this is as good as it can get. And when we work together, magical things can happen. And I hope to be part of that change for the next 4 years as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And next are the candidates for the Community College Governing Board. Nina German first.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to the Santa Fe New Mexican and the League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County for this opportunity. My name is Lena German. I go by the pronouns she, her, hers. And I first would like to acknowledge the Tewa. This is the land of the Tewa people. And we hope that we are good stewards of this land and we could nurture it for the people coming after us. I'm an educator, a scientist, a mother of 2 sons who were born and raised in Santa Fe and went through Santa Fe Public Schools. I'm a student of Santa Fe Community College. My kids were students of Santa Fe Community College, and I've been an adjunct faculty here. Santa Fe has been my home for the last 26 years, and this college has been part of my life for most of those 26 years. I actually learned to swim as an adult here, and I recommend it. As an educator, I had done a 1-year stunt as a chemistry teacher at Santa Fe High, 6 years as an adjunct faculty here. And in the last 7 years, I founded a educational nonprofit, STEM Santa Fe, that provides science, technology, engineering, and math programming for middle school and high school kids in a mentorship model. Now I'm moving on to new ventures, and Santa Fe Community College is so dear to my heart. And when the opportunity to be on the board opened up, I thought this is where I'm going to make a difference in my community now. I'm happy to be here, and I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you. And now for Lorenzo Dominguez.
Good evening, buenas noches. My name is Lorenzo Dominguez. Thank you all for being here this evening. I want to also thank our host, Hannah, Veronica, the League of Women Voters, Santa Fe New Mexican, that is live streaming this on YouTube, and of course, our community college. I'm a first-generation American, New Mexican college graduate farmer, and now electoral candidate. There's a lot of firsts for me, but I've been very fortunate enough for the last 55 years to have had a solid foundation of support from my Hispanic family and heritage. Most importantly and most relevant this evening is that I am grateful to have been given a step up in life through higher education. This includes a bachelor's in international cultural studies and cultural anthropology from UCLA and a master's in international public law, human rights, and humanitarian policy from the School of International Public Affairs at Columbia University. Over the last 40 years, as a writer, communications director, community builder, radio show host, and father of 5 children, I've learned to listen, or at least I've tried with my children. For 40 years, I've also volunteered my time to help my community, and likewise, my wife and I have encouraged our children to give back. And in fact, our daughter, Olivia Luce, who's in the audience this evening, is also running for office as a 5th grader at Salazar Elementary, and she's giving her campaign speech tomorrow, both in English and in Espanol, and thus I'm trying to set a good example tonight. I've served on the boards of the Homeless Shelter and Human Rights Commission in our former hometown in New York, and here in Santa Fe, I served at the Turquoise Trail Charter School Board of Governors for 2 years. During that time, I had a fellowship in education reform in the state, and currently I am a fellow in the Culture of Health Leadership Institute for Racial Equity, a program sponsored by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And finally, I hope to win tonight's prize for the longest words used in an opening statement. With that, thank you, muchísimas gracias. I look forward to sharing my thoughts with you.
Thank you all. So now we're going to move on to the first question. And I believe the time limit for this question is 2 minutes. And this can go for every candidate. And we've had several of these questions, and I think this is the one that sums it up the best. How would you respond to a student's or parent's request to remove books?
To what?
Remove books. And I'm going to assume that this is both from the school libraries and from the curriculum. And John McKenna, please.
And the question is regarding, is it leading to, I'm thinking, to banning books? Is that what you're saying? The question?
I have the question in the questionnaire.
Read it one more time for me.
How would you respond to a student's or parent's request to remove books?
Well, first of all, we have to look at everything calmly and with common sense. And look at the books that our kids are reading in school. Okay, so let's start from there. Are our kids, my number one concern is, are our kids learning how to read and write? That's really what I'd like to see. I'm not so much starting off with the idea, let's go in and get rid of books. I do agree, I would agree with the parents if the books were not age appropriate for children. Absolutely not age appropriate. And I'm trying to be delicate here with this. But my concern is teaching kids how to read and write. Relative to what Patricia was saying, with the people that she's had working for her, and I've seen this as well, kids that are graduating from these schools, my God, it's amazing how poorly educated they've been. So imagine this, imagine having kids who, because they can read and write well, are exposed to a variety of literature, and as a result of that, become people with real free-thinking, open minds. And then they're presented, perhaps later in life, perhaps even in the high school setting, with more of those controversial things, and then they'd be able to discern the truth of what they are, as opposed to being indoctrinated as young children. Did I over time? So I can keep going? So, but that about sums it up for me.
Thank you, and we've had a request that everyone try to speak up. People in the back rows are having trouble hearing. Sarah Bozek?
I think if a parent or a student brought a concern forward about a certain book, whether it was in the library or in the curriculum, that warrants a discussion. You know, we always want to hear what people's concerns are, where they're coming from. That is a big part of what I feel my role is on the board, is being able to hear different things and kind of be a bridge between the district administration and parents at home. And so lots of times when folks are concerned, it's for a good reason. And we don't know unless we sit down and listen. And so that would be my first step. I think that then there can be a dialogue, a back and forth. I don't believe that censorship leads to anything good. I do think that we should be raising free thinkers. I think the way that we do that is by exposing them to lots of different things that are age appropriate, which there's a whole process through which those things happen in school libraries. So I think that oftentimes when stuff has gotten there, it's gotten through the vetting process and it's there for a reason. But we can still have a conversation and seek to understand both sides of the issue. And what I know from the teachers and the principals that work in our schools is that they're happy to kind of accommodate if parents say, you know, I'm not really comfortable with that, but banning that across the board or removing a book across the board takes away opportunities from other students. And I don't think that that's the right path to take.
Thank you. Lena?
Okay, first of all, when you're a student at Santa Fe Community College, even if you're a minor, parents have no say. They're treated as college students, and as a board member, I would be a voice for the students and for the community. But we also all about setting policies, and we have to, you know, I would listen, and then I would take it back to the board, and we have to talk among each other and decide whether there needs to be a policy or not. In any concern that a parent or a student brings, or a community member brings to us. In terms of banning books, I'm totally against banning books. I'm all for freedom of speech, and everybody who knows me knows that I will speak my mind. And so I would like that to be for everybody. I would encourage to, as a board, I would encourage the executive team and the president to open up, to put on some kind of discussions and conversations that are open to the community to discuss the whole issue and present both sides of why some books need to be banned, you know. And I think some people, once they feel like they're heard, then they might not be too strong about the issue. But you know, part of my priorities is to bring more events and more programs to this campus that the community cares about, and this is one perfect example of that. Yeah, sounds about right.
Thank you. Lorenza?
What she said. But honestly, I do echo a lot of the same sentiments that Lena shared. And I will reiterate, first of all, these are young adults at the community college. They should have the choice to make up their own mind. And there is a procedure, on board of directors. I don't know what that policy is. It's something I would have to review. If there was a student or a faculty member that wanted to exclude, we'd have to go through that procedure. But like Lena said, hopefully there would be a forum for discussion to talk about these things. And I do have a bias. There's a cultural anthropologist in the audience, George Gamble, and I also have a degree in cultural anthropology. So my point of view is very much a cultural relativist. So everything matters. Everybody's opinion matters and should be given an opportunity to express that. So cultural diversity is super important. It's been part of my adult life for a very long time. I've been an advocate in many different ways for racial diversity and equity and cultural diversity and equity. So when it comes to books with different opinions, and we've all experienced this for the last 6 years, there's been a lot of conflict between different opinions. I think it's really important that we be open to other people's opinions, and that often comes through literature and the books and the textbooks that we see. So I would support basically having a forum to discuss if there are concerns about textbooks or books within the college. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patricia?
I'm in total agreement with every voice that's been stated here. As far as, the question was the parent and the student, okay? Parents are the best advocate for their children. They know and they love them like nobody else would. My concern is the young children, okay? When it's age inappropriate, I think, like Sarah said, you need to have conversation and engagement with the parent and to find out what their objections are, what is healthy for that child. I think that is imperative. As they get older, they should have free choice of what they want to fill their minds with. But as young children and on this campaign trail, I've talked to many parents that are very concerned with some of the things that the young children are being exposed to. And for that reason, I think there has to be community involvement and looking at what books they are disapproving of. I think it's very important to engage community and parents as well for the sake of the child.
Thank you. Right. So this next question is for the school board candidates, and I will have another question for the community college candidates. And we take these as they come to us, and we will sometimes, change them slightly to avoid repetition. But what role, and this question is for Sarah Bozing, what role do you see a school board member or a governing board member having in determining a school curriculum or learning objections?
Well, it is in our policy that the school board gets the final approval of school curriculum. In my experience over the last 3.5+ years, that is not something that happens unless there's an objection. I would say we hire and fire the superintendent, and the superintendent's role is to kind of oversee the day-to-day processes of the district. And curriculum and instruction is one of those things that happens in his cabinet. So we get presentations and updates, and we're aware of what's happening, and we approve updated policies, but we don't on a regular basis get involved in the nitty-gritty of how things are being taught in the classroom, in each individual classroom in each subject. So, that's the important part of having a superintendent that you trust and work well with, because you share the vision and he carries it out in large part.
Thank you. And this question is for the community college board candidates. Please describe how you will try to grow the new teaching and educational assistance pipeline.
Hannah, I'm sorry. Shouldn't the other two candidates answer that?
No.
Oh.
No, we rotate.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Yes.
Sorry.
Please describe how you will try to grow the new teaching and educational assistance pipeline. And Lena?
I answered first last time. So it's so important that we work on the pipeline for teachers. And as a STEM educator with STEM Santa Fe, I had developed and offered programs that are hands-on, project-based learning that was very engaging to the students, and it was very engaging whether it was online or whether it was in person, because we continued working during COVID and providing programming. And so there are cutting-edge, result-proven methods of teaching math, teaching science, teaching reading in a way that is actually going to produce results. However, more and more teachers need that training. And I see the Santa Fe Community College as the place for that bridge to help K-12 education. There are a lot of topics that are coming up. What's the role of AI in education right now? And the teachers need some more experience and some more skills in that, and very quickly. And I'm hoping that the Santa Fe Community College, through the teacher education program, but also through the continuing education program, and there's a new initiative that the college is about to launch, which is Mosaica, so that they could have more contracts offered to the public schools or to the teacher education, professional development, and hopefully that's what's going to help a lot in the pipeline, with the pipeline.
Thank you. And Lorenzo?
Yeah, so in terms of increasing the teacher pipeline, there are many great programs here at the community college that support teaching and education. Similarly, the most popular program here is nursing, and I think there are a lot of relevant similarities between what's happening in the nursing industry as well as the teaching industry. Both programs are trying to attract new candidates, but there are a lot of factors that are actually disincentives for people to join. Teaching and healthcare, there are a lot of risk factors, especially after the pandemic. There are people who don't necessarily want to commit to a career where there are inherent dangers, whether it's infectious disease or, when it comes to teaching, quite frankly, violence. It's so unfortunate we've had so many different events in the last 10 years where people aren't necessarily attracted to that profession. So I think it's really important to meet candidates in terms of teaching as well as nursing as where they're at. And what are the incentives to bring them to the profession? Whether it's finance, and increasing salaries for both areas, or working with partners in our community, in the high schools, in K through 12, and other colleges as to what are the needs for teachers. So I think working with community partners, listening to those who are possible candidates, perhaps interviewing those who are currently teachers, and as well as veteran teachers, to try to understand how do we improve education as an environment and are able to attract more people to the excellent programs we have here at the community college. Thank you.
Thank you. And now back to the school board question, which is, what role do you see a school board member or governing board member having in determining school curriculum or learning objections?
I think we have a really...
Could you hear the question again?
We're having a very difficult
yeah.
time hearing everything, and people are talking while the candidates are talking. It's really hard to hear, really hard.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Let me read this out. What role do you see a school board member or governing board member having in determining school curriculum or learning objections?
Okay, our sister state, Colorado, the educational achievement among their students is very high. We have in New Mexico an Open Meeting Act where in Colorado they exercise it. Twice a year, the community in Colorado looks at the curriculum, approves it or disapproves it, and they look at it twice a year. Based on where our educational ranking is at number 50 and our literacy rate really low. I think this is a big area of concern of curriculum. Perhaps we go to maybe standardized curriculum. Christian schools use Abeka, which is standardized, and they have great results. I think we need, as a school board, to invite the community to look at the curriculum, to come up with ideas to raise our educational ranking because we are very low. So I think this is very important, to exercise our right as people with this Open Meeting Act to exercise, our right to see the curriculum that's been established. Another thing that I hear from teachers, I've got many friends that are teachers, is they change the curriculum every 3 years. So a teacher gets very efficient in teaching a curriculum, and then they change it up. So she's got to learn a whole new way of teaching a curriculum. So I think this is very important, an aspect that we really need to look at.
Thank you. And it's your turn, John.
Very good, thank you. So I'd like to just get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of what I think we could actually do, having been a teacher, having been in schools, especially Catholic schools. And so this is where I would say to people, vote for me if you think that I can bring something else to the table. And these are the ideas I'd like to bring. Okay, so how did we get kids into these fantastic schools? That's one issue right there. And then in the public schools, I would say, public school system, how can we gear kids toward trade schools as well? Okay, so I'm thinking, how do we get kids into college? How do we get kids into trade schools? How do we get kids to be able to not just, bring themselves up and lift themselves up, but also really be involved in the community? So the biggest thing in the Catholic school was the kid was always taught that there's a bigger picture. It's bigger than you. Instead of just always focused on you, you're going to go out into the world and bring skills into the world. Okay? So what we did was we staggered our education. So we had, the kids would take a test at the beginning of the year, and a lot of you guys would know about it, the entrance exam. From the entrance exam and the grades that they got in 8th grade, and this is high school specifically, we could see where the kids were academically. We would standardize them into a particular group and have great teachers trained to work with kids from that particular group. Then we would go to one section above them, intellectually speaking, and then to the AP type classes, advanced placement kids. We would always try to gear our standard kids, always a rigorous program, and gear them in that rigor up to the next level, trying to get them eventually by grade 12 into the AP, as many kids as we possibly could.
You're out of time.
Okay, I think I'm saying some relevant things here. This is what I could bring, I think. Some real ideas.
So now I've got a question for everyone. Same question for all 5 candidates, and I'm going to begin with Lena. How would you protect our LGBTQ plus kids from bullying?
Oh, boy. I believe we have at Santa Fe Community College, we have a counseling department, and we have like a 24/7 counseling department if needed. And I think the staff and faculty would need probably continuous training on the topic to recognize the signs of bullying and to recognize the signs that there might be some kids that are not comfortable and why. I hope there's no bullying on this campus, but I haven't heard. It's been a very welcoming campus. I guess we all could use more training all the time.
Thank you. Lorenzo?
Well, having been worked for a corporation, a Fortune 100 company for 23 years, I was very lucky enough to be involved with a number of diversity committees, one including the LGBT community. I have many gay friends and served on the leadership committee there. In fact, I'm proud to say that I also was the DJ at the New York City Pride Parade for our company for 4 years. So I understand the community and the needs fairly well. I agree with Lena. I wouldn't tolerate bullying at all at the school, and there probably is a no bullying policy. So I think part of a way to protect that community and any other community that feels discriminated against would be better communicating. You know, once again, as Lena has suggested, forums are very important so that we engender some sort of discussion amongst our constituents and the larger community, and that we have events that basically openly support all the diverse groups here at the community college. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patricia?
Bullying, I mean, why do we target only LGBT children when there's all children that are bullied sometimes in the schools? And I believe it's a safety issue. I hear many parents concerned with this, of the bullying. And you know, I believe it's how our community reacts. I think things start from the top and filter down. Our children should not be bullied, no matter what diversity they're from, or what culture or ideology. There should never be bullying. And as a school board member, I would work hard to ensure that there is safety in our schools. I hear from high school students at Capitol High that they're afraid to go to the bathrooms because of the vaping of drugs and sex that's going on in there. Why are we failing our children in our schools? We need to wake up and we need to do something to protect our children.
Thank you. John?
Sure. So in my experience, we always had an excellent dean of students, always very good, and a whole staff that was geared toward discipline within the school, so that teachers and kids that were bullied could go to the dean of students. Also, I would posit this as well. The parents of the bullies need to be called, initiated, brought into the picture. That's what we would do as well. That's my experience in the schools. And then we always have to be careful not to take the kid that was bullied and somehow isolate them. We always want to keep them involved in the classroom, keep them involved with all the other kids. But kids are good kids. I saw that teaching. Kids generally, they want to be decent. They want to be good. You can encourage the bully type kid to be a good kid, especially if you kind of read them the riot act with the dean of students, have the parents in, if the parents are involved, which you'd love to see. And if you have an SRO, you know, a student, if you have a resource officer there as well. You know, and you have to have these kind of safety things in place as well. But you have to expel kids at times. If a kid is just too out of control, just too, you know, and over time you'd see what that kid is. Sometimes some kids just need either an expulsion or put into perhaps another program and taken out of the school. There could be a variety of psychological reasons to why somebody is a bully, in essence. These are things I've seen as a teacher, and these are things that definitely work.
Thank you. Sarah?
Could you read the question one more time, please?
Of course. How would you protect our LGBTQ plus kids in school from bullying?
The LGBTQ plus community is a large part of why my family and I moved back to Santa Fe from Florida 7 years ago. It's a community that I was immersed in growing up here, and something that is very, very important to me. And so making sure that our students feel safe to express themselves as they would like to is incredibly important. The district is a safe zone. That's a program that's put on through the Office of Student Wellness that focuses on anti-bullying and anti-violence There are programs throughout different grade levels that are absolutely age appropriate for anti-bullying and violence prevention. We have community partners that we work with to share that curriculum. And in addition, we do have safety patrol officers. Those jobs were contracted previously to outside of the district, and a few years ago we changed that and brought those jobs into the community. So there are community members that are our safety officers. They're not police officers, they're community members, and the goal is for them to build relationships with the students in the schools. If they see a face, it might be their neighbor, it might be their best friend's uncle, they're people in our community. And so by building those relationships and having that familiarity, we can help ensure that students always have someone to go to if they feel unsafe. And I think we should make sure that those programs are protected and build them up as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. And this question is for the community college board candidates. What role do you see a member of the community college governing board having in determining program additions? And we will begin with Lorenzo.
Well, as a prospective board member, once again, in terms of program additions, if that serves the goals of the college, there is an existing 5-year strategic plan, which has 3 main goals. One is to support our students, second, to partner with the community, and then build our college capacity. So in terms of new programs, if we're serving the needs primarily of our students and partners, then I possibly would be supportive. It's something that we would have to consider, and work with the administration on new programs. That said, there are many amazing programs already existing at the college. So personally, I believe that
Board candidates. Should the Board of Education change the practice of having a single spokesperson, which may limit the diversity of thought and therefore the practice be changed?
In
The
what
Board of
context?
Education change the practice. Should the Board of Education change the practice of having a single spokesperson?
Well, the spokesperson's speaking on behalf of the superintendent, correct? So that's not necessarily an opinion, a job relative to their personal opinion, I would suspect.
Well, I think, John, you've leaped ahead of Patricia here, but thank you
Oh,
for the
I'm
clarity.
sorry.
Shall we move to
Oh,
another
you
question
were looking
then?
at me.
I would love to answer that question just for clarity.
Well, let's make sure. Patricia, did you want to say something
go
to it
ahead,
because
Sarah.
it is
Okay.
your turn?
It is your turn if you want to go first.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. So the board has adopted that it's considered a norm. It's not a policy. It's not anything that's written in stone. It can change at any time, and board members often speak to reporters and the public. The norm is sort of to check in with whoever the spokesperson is and say, this reporter reached out to me, is it okay for me to chat with them? Or I'm going to chat with them, I just wanted to let you know. It's a common courtesy, but there's no rules, there's no repercussions. The goal in that norm is to have one person who's speaking for the board. It's not for the superintendent. It's because the board as a whole has power. No one individual on the board has power. And so, again, because we're volunteers, it often can take up quite a lot of time if everyone is talking to reporters all the time. And I think the practice started because oftentimes before a contentious vote, journalists would call the board members and get their statements on the issue. And that's the work that's supposed to happen in an open meeting. And so that is where that norm kind of developed. And often we adhere to that, but there are always exceptions.
Thank you, and I'm going to go out of order, come back to Patricia. Did you want to address this?
That's a good policy, because I see where it would collaboratively work, you'd have organization there, people not getting out and a lot of time being spent. So I think that is a good policy. I agree.
Thank you, and John, did
Yeah, I
you
was
want
just
to
trying
add
to clarify what the
Yeah.
question was. I'm not trying to step in on anybody's time, but no, just that everybody's on the same page. Like, I totally understand that. And you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with parents, and they need to know where everybody is coming from, and especially if you can bring some common sense to it. So that's my take.
Thank you. And now we're back to you, Lena, and the question, I will read the question again loudly. What role do you see a member of the community college governing board having in determining program additions?
Okay, again, a member of the board is part of a team of board members. So we would work on together and the first thing is we ask questions. And I'm a scientist, so I need to see some data. I see if there is a need and a demand in the community. Now, I am on the Work-Based Learning Coalition of Northern New Mexico and the STEAM Education Coalition of Northern New Mexico. I attend conferences and summits related to the economic development in mostly Northern New Mexico and Santa Fe. And there's data out there, and there's money funding coming very soon to the state of New Mexico that needs broadband workers, for example. And this is where Santa Fe Community College can start a new program, because we know that there's a workforce need for broadband technicians, for example, and also with partnering with Lano and what kind of technicians they need. So with data, we could come together as a board and we could look at the possibilities of new programs that way. Now, there are also current programs that have very low enrollment, and nursing is one of them, and we got to work on that because there's a workforce need. Everybody knows that we have a nationwide shortage in nurses, so why is the enrollment low? So I will definitely be pushing and asking questions and suggesting solutions that I know from what I know from the collaborations I've had in the community. And working with students and mentors. But it's all about data, and we need to find the data first. And if there's a program that is not going to have enough enrollment of students, then we would go back as a board to the president and say, you need to talk to that department and maybe give them 2 years to bring their enrollment up. And if not, then we need to cut that program. It will be hard decisions. Cut that program and go with new programs. Because there's a budget, and we're responsible for a budget. So, I'll stop.
Thank you. All right. We'll begin again with Patricia. Could you please list your top 3 priorities once this election is completed? Actions, please.
3 would be improvement in our curriculum. 2nd would be parental involvement and consent. And safety. Those would be my 3.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, so I didn't even think of this before I came in here, this term nuts and bolts, but I keep bringing that up relative to having been a teacher, So one of the things that really kept the kids in school and really kept the kids academically motivated as well was we had great programs from arts to sports. Arts to sports. We were keeping the kids after school all the time because they wanted to be involved in arts and sports. Kids I'm telling you, you couldn't believe the way they would show up every day because they were playing football, or they were in the play, or they were doing this or doing that. And we really tried to push that with them. So I do that, arts and sports. The other thing is curriculum. I think the school board should be much more involved in that. And again, having been a teacher, I can take a good hard look at what I know is successful in terms of curriculum in getting kids geared toward where they want to go, either toward college, working perhaps right after college, or going in military as well, but going to trade schools as well. And then, of course, I'm big on buildings and grounds. I think if you have great facilities for kids, we always try to update our facility, constantly working on it. The kids took real ownership and pride in it and loved to come to school because it was a beautiful edifice, a beautiful building. And so those among safety in the modern age, we got to be thinking about that too. But those are my priorities.
Thank you. Sarah?
I would say that my top 3 priorities are continuing and finishing the reimagining process, which we're about a year into. The piece of that particularly interests me is around magnet programs and different ways that we can build programs within existing schools to attract students and keep them more engaged with school. My second would be recruitment and retention of students and teachers, highly qualified teachers. We have learned through our reimagining process that there's a dip that happens in middle school, and then students often come back for high school. So kind of looking at that and thinking about what sorts of programs and supports that we can build in for both students and teachers. And then always, because of my nursing background, I think health and wellness and safety, and that's mental health and social emotional learning and these anti-bullying things that we've been talking about, as well as, you know, violence prevention, school safety improvements, which we've done a lot of, and there are more things slated. Ring doorbell cameras, we've put up bulletproof film on the windows in the schools so that the front staff folks are safe. If anyone were to get into a school building, the classrooms are incredibly safe. Those updates were done several years ago. So our school buildings are very, very safe, and I think we can continue to do more to ensure protection for our students.
Thank you.
Lena, what's the question?
The question is, what are your top 3 priorities? It's for everybody.
That's for everybody.
And
Okay.
actions, please. They want actions.
Action, okay. So of course I'm a STEM educator, and so STEM is a big priority for me. The way I see the Santa Fe Community College acting on that is by, again, teacher education in the STEM field, and providing more professional development opportunities. I heard from teachers that sometimes the district gives us like one professional development for all, the same one, and that teacher need variety. There are teachers who are more advanced than others. Some teacher might need to figure out how to deal with the bullying issues. Some teacher might need to figure out how to deal with how to teach reading in a different way with all the spectrum of students they have. So I see the Santa Fe Community College as big on that. So I would say STEM, but also reading is a big one. There's also, in terms of STEM, we have a lot of great facilities on this campus that are, we have Science on Sphere, some of you might have heard of it, maybe not. We have a planetarium, we've got a medical simulation lab, we've got great facilities, but not a lot of people know about them, and there isn't an integrated, multidisciplinary approach for the students or the community to use them. So that's my number 1. Do you have time? Okay. Number 2 priority is post-secondary opportunities. The Santa Fe Community College is the place where everybody could come and students could have apprenticeships, internships, reskill their skills. Reboot their skills? I can't say, I don't know. Reboot themselves for the workforce, and I wish every high school student can take at least one college class here. This is one of my other priorities. We do have some high school students, my kids included, took classes here, but I want to make sure every high school student has that opportunity. And the last one, community hub. This is the place for all the community, and it should be welcoming with regular events and programs and discussions.
Thank you, Linda. Lorenzo?
I would have three action-oriented priorities. One would be meeting the students where they're at with support services that increase enrollment, persistence, and graduation rates. Also, second would be understanding the needs of staff and faculty to improve recruitment and retention rates there as well. And then finally, similar to Lena just said, building community, because I agree with John that even though he was in Boston, they were able to do a lot with limited resources. I think most educational institutions these days have limited resources, so building community is a great way to do that. I want to focus a little bit on the first one, which in terms of meeting the students where they're at. Much like many of the educational institutions across the country, college is facing challenges when it comes to student enrollment and these rates. Yesterday, it so happens that the Santa Fe New Mexican reported across the U.S., college enrollment has been declining for more than a decade. As many Americans have started to question the value of higher education amid spiking college costs. Between 2012 and 2022, 4 million college students at 2-year and 4-year institutions nationwide disappeared from the student headcount. In New Mexico, during the fall of 2020, 12,000 fewer students enrolled in college across the state compared to the year before. And although the good news is that we're seeing enrollment increase across New Mexico, there's still a lot of work to be done to increase these rates. The Legislative Finance Committee of the state found in a recent study that for every 10 first-time full-time undergraduate students pursuing a degree in the state, only 5 students graduate with their degree in 6 years. 4 of those 10 drop out in the first year. So to keep students after enrollment, it is recommended that campuses increase support services, such as advising, tutoring, mental health, etc. For here, I would include services that support parents, since 35% of our students are parents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then this question is going to be for everyone. What specifically are your plans to address the educational deficits accrued by students during COVID? John?
Yeah, and when I used the term angry in my opening, I don't know if that was smart, but because maybe I should use the term passion. A great deal of passion in regard to this. I'd like to start with it just looking at it from the common sense point of view. So when COVID first came out, none of us knew what the heck it was, right? We didn't get it. We were trying to figure it out. How deadly is it? Who does it affect? Things of that nature. So we thought, well, we'll keep the kids out of school. My nephews, for example, they were the most excellent example in the Massachusetts area. They were on the computers for the year or so, and they said, Uncle John, we didn't learn a darn thing. They were basically out of school for a couple of years. My nephews. It killed them too because they couldn't participate in the sports. That drove them out of their minds, right? Not just seeing the friends, but there was that as well. So the kids just really lost on that. Now, I'd say the second year, I think we knew better. We were starting to see the science was showing that kids weren't getting the disease and they weren't necessarily transmitting it. That was the important thing. Everybody got that. Nobody wanted the kid to bring it home, either give it to the teachers. As a teacher, I could understand that, or bring it home to grandma. But it wasn't necessarily going in that direction. We should have had the kids in school that second year. That was a big, big deficit with our kids. And unmasking them. I'll take the bold step and say they should never be masked and they should be in school. Especially the little ones. The little ones need that communication. They need to see the teacher speaking. They need to see their friends speaking. They need to have that kind of that development, early childhood development. So how would I make up for it? Oh, that's the question of the day.
And you're
Back, John, I'm out of time.
Sarah?
Thank you. Just going to start out by laying a little foundation here, which is that COVID, if it's not the leading cause of death in children, it's in the top 3.
No.
It is. On the
I'm sure.
CDC website,
So-
it is. So
And you believe?
that's a fact.
You believe the
John,
CDC?
John,
And-
Sarah's turn.
Well, it's sort of a debate, isn't it?
And
No,
I think,
Oh, it's not?
no,
Okay, you're with her.
yes.
I think,
Excuse me, Mary, can we start timing again?
Yes.
We're asking for courtesy to all of our candidates and speakers right now. If you have a question or a concern, please write it down or speak to the candidate afterwards. Sarah,
thank you.
please start from the top.
I
Thank you.
apologize.
That's fine. As I said at the beginning, I'm a nurse, so I believe in science. I spent a great deal of time in, and still read almost daily about COVID. So I think that while having students do remote learning was incredibly challenging, and I say this like sincerely because I had 3 kids that were at home on computers. It was not ideal, it wasn't fun, and I think that it's what needed to happen with the information that we had at the time. That's not the question. So the question is, with the learning deficits that happened, and there are learning deficits and no one's denying that, I also want to acknowledge that our students did learn lots of things. My now 3rd grader, when he was in 1st grade, could give me a PowerPoint presentation over Zoom, which I didn't learn to do until the very same time when I was 40. So, I mean, there are some cool things that our kids learned, and I believe that at this point where we are is, again, collaborating. It's kind of at the heart of everything. And so I would like to hear from students and teachers what they need. The teachers are the professionals. They know how to teach their students. What do they need more of? We've done some pilot programs with intensive reading and seen if students can grow a year's worth in a month of intensive studying, tutoring. So there are things that we can do. Gosh, my time's running out. Yeah, I'll just stop there.
Thank you. Lena?
I'll start by sharing a personal story. So my son graduated from Santa Fe High, top 2%, and he got accepted in engineering school out of state. But when they tested him in math, he failed. They told him he needs remedial math. And luckily, Santa Fe Community College was offering that class that he took in high school and supposedly passed it with 100. Then I had him take it again here at Santa Fe Community College over the summer, and he passed, and he was able to go back to take the test at the college, and he passed that test and was able to be at the same level as everybody else. So Santa Fe Community College is the place to try to close that deficit in student learning. And it worked miracles for my kid, and now he comes home from college every summer and he takes more classes because it's helping him lighten up his load when he's there and he's competing with kids from across the country. I was at the last board meeting here at the community college and heard from the dean of the nursing about the low enrollment in nursing, that we have capacity for 24, 25 students, but we only have 11. And one of the questions was asked was, well, what, are you getting applicants? Like, yeah, we're getting a lot of applicants, but a lot of them need remedial classes, and a lot of them, are not passing the grade they need to pass in order to be in the nursing program. And one of the board members asked is, well, is there someone following up with these kids who are not, passing? Well, we have one staff member who's an advisor who has to follow up with all the applications. So as a board member, I would look at the budget, we'd find resources. What we need to do is hire more staff that can follow the students. If a student walks in the door to this campus, we shouldn't let them go. We should find a way with the staff to provide all the services they need.
Oh, Lena?
Okay.
Okay. Lorenzo?
So just to reiterate the question for the audience, I believe it was a matter of how do we mediate the deficit in learning after the pandemic for students. So, and I would say, first and foremost, the pandemic spurred many of us, adults, students, otherwise, to re-examine our purpose in life. And especially when it comes to jobs, a lot of people, participate in the Great Resignation or have changed their jobs. And students as well, and families have said, well, what's the purpose of education? As I was talking about before, the New Mexican came out with an article about how across the country, people are re-examining the purpose of higher education. Now, that said, so first of all, people re-examine what the purpose is, and then second, also pedagogy. So the methods of teaching have been re-examined because, as Lena said, and everybody experienced when we were all on Zoom for a couple of years, at first it was a horrible experience, but I think many of us have learned that we can be in touch and connected to people all around the world because of this new medium. So the college has to adapt, and I think there needs to be examination, once again, of purpose and method in terms of to meet that gap. I will also end with an anecdote of mine. I was talking to my best friend from graduate school yesterday, and he was saying he loves community colleges, and the reason is he grew up in rural Pennsylvania, and he went to Penn State. He dropped out. He had a lot of trouble. He went into the Navy, and then he said he went to 4 to 5 different community colleges that got him back into step. He went to UC Davis, went to Columbia with me at the graduate program, went on to get his doctorate, and then teach at Columbia. So my point is that community colleges allow us a lot of options and ways to pivot and to meet that gap. Thank you.
Thank you. Well timed. And Patricia.
I have personal experience in this. I have a grandson that was in the dual language program in Kearney, and he was a high achiever, doing very, very well. And then COVID happened. Went back to school, and his teacher was very engaged with him and with my son and daughter-in-law, and contacted them and said, I think we need to rethink Avery being in the dual language program. So they moved him out of the dual language, and now he's doing very well. I think we have to be very observant with our kids. Now I'm talking to elementary and high school, that's my district. The other thing that I see is we have a lot of immigrants that are here now in Capitol High School, okay? And it takes a long time to become proficient in a language that they're learning, okay? So rather than keep pushing our kids and pushing them on to the next grade level when they're not proficient, because of the deficit of a lot of COVID, why don't we look at, instead of them being in a high school, what about ECO, where they can go, they can learn a trade, they can get into the GED program, they can get an associate's, and they can achieve and be successful. So I think we really need to look at the deficits that our children have experienced and come up with different ways to help them.
Thank you. And now this question is for Henry. We started about 10 or 15 minutes late. Do you mind going over for one more question and then the closing statements?
Right on.
Okay, we have lots of questions here, and I'm sorry that we can't get to all of them. But let's start with Sarah, and I believe this can go for all 5 candidates. What process do you use to decide on a budget priority?
That's a really good question. The board usually works collaboratively to identify the top budget priorities. In public education, in K-12, there's not a lot of wiggle room for special priorities. There's just not, once you kind of go through salaries, employee teacher benefits, all of these things, you have a little tiny pot of money left over. And so we usually name 3 to 5 each individual board member, and then kind of look at that big group, and there's often similarities and overlaps. So, you know, we come up with things like every school should have a nurse, every school should have a counselor, a librarian. You know, those are some of the priorities that we've had in the past. And I'll be real honest, like the last few years, we've had to kind of refine those priorities. And when we think about having a licensed, highly qualified teacher in every classroom, when we look at why that can't happen, oftentimes it's affordable housing. Like, affordable housing is underneath so many of our problems, and there's only so much that we can do within our budget, but we have at least made that a legislative priority to work with our state delegation on tackling that problem. So, you know, it's really, that is a place where board members get to bring the things that they're passionate about, and there's not always a lot of room for those things to come to fruition.
Thank you. Lena?
I think the priority is student learning. The priority is not budget. The priority is student learning and finding faculty and staff to teach the students and to take care of them and really help them out till they graduate. So we have to take care of the staff and the faculty and the students. And then we look at the budget from that framework. I founded a nonprofit and I had 0 budget, and I grew it all the way to $500,000 all by myself. And I only did that with collaborations and partnerships with the businesses, with the other nonprofits in town, with working with the legislature, our unique legislature, and so we can find the funding. We can find the funding. There's a will, there's a way to find a funding to support student learning and to support our faculty and staff and the retention of faculty and staff. Definitely, we work as a team again, board with Birka as a team, and set priorities. And there are other things too, like for example, like dual credit. Like we want to encourage more students to take dual credit classes. Again, that helped my kids a lot. They were able to go to college and have a whole semester waived just because they took a lot of dual credit classes while they were in high school. And so they say that dual credits does not bring in revenue to the college. Yeah, but it brings in goodwill. It lifts up the community and the students. And if a student takes one dual credit class, they might decide that there's a certificate program here that they want to join eventually. So not everything we look at from the budget perspective. We look at it from, we're a community college, we're here for the community. It's not all about money, and money can come. There's a way. I know how to bring money to campus.
Lorenzo?
They said I can finish my sentence when I say it. I'm finishing my sentence. Sorry, Lorenzo.
No, it's quite all right. So I believe there are 5 existing sources that I would look at in order to prioritize our budget. One would be the master plan that I've mentioned. It's a 5-year master plan that the school looks at. I'm sorry, the strategic plan. Then there's also the master plan, which looks at campus renovations and maintenance. Also reality, so number 3 would be the fact that 75% of the budget goes to compensation and benefits. 25% goes to the rest of what it takes to run the college. So that is a huge priority. Also, the fact where most of the money comes from, there are state allocations, local allocations, and tuition and fees. The vast majority of the money comes from local allocations. That's you, the local taxpayer. So what are the community's priorities? And then finally, our partnerships with our community. We have an amazing welding program on campus. We work with Los Alamos Lab. And after 18 months, some of these graduates can go, and I've heard, I haven't verified this, but they can start making $100,000, right? And they look at their plans, their needs for 15 years ahead of time. So, working with community partners, it's important to look to the future, to see what our needs are, and to help set our priorities in that respect as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patricia?
Well, as Sarah pointed out, there's limited monies in our budget. And one of the big things that I see is we have schools that have, 50% capacity of enrollment. What if, with our re-imaging, remarket, the community to really think about, could we perhaps consolidate schools, and the one that we have that is an older school, why don't we sell it and bring that money in? Why don't we work at doing that? I think it's a win-win situation. Perhaps we could have a developer that bought that and we turn it into a housing project for our teachers that could afford to live here in Santa Fe. That's the one big thing, is that it costs a lot of money to live here in Santa Fe, and a teacher's salary, how can they afford to do that? So, if we want teacher recruitment and retention, we've got to start thinking outside the box and work with our community and market our ideas and say, look, our public school system, we don't have the money, the enrollment is low, let's come together and let's come up with some logical, innovative ideas to save our public schools.
Thank you. John?
So I went to an all-boys Catholic high school in Massachusetts, and I actually got a scholarship from the League of Women Voters. I forgot to tell you that. When I was 14 years old. Yeah, every year they paid a portion of my tuition. But having taught again in Catholic schools, the tuition, almost all of it, tons of it went to the teachers. We knew that right off the bat where the money was going. So how do we do it? I'm wondering if this is something I could bring to the table. Why don't we have development? Okay, the Catholic school I went to has a development program that you just would not believe. I'm getting texts from them, emails from them every single day, it seems. We need money for this, look at this and showcase a kid. This kid, is running track at Boston College now, and he did that, he went through the program this way, and we could use money for our track program. We really developed the alumni. That's a huge thing that we did. We got a ton of money. We get tons of money from alumni. And why public schools don't do that, I don't understand it. It's almost as if, in my mind, it seems as if, we don't know what they're doing and we don't know if they're successful and all that. We won't, but that's crazy. We should make the assumption that they're successful, that they're doing well. Keep tabs on them, find out where they are, have a development program, and ask them to put money back into the schools they went to here in Santa Fe. I think it's huge. I can't tell you the amount of money that comes in every year specifically from the development program. And the other thing, I know I only got a couple seconds left. Drama, music programs, things like that. You can't believe the way we would actually send the kids out to music stores, to a school of music, looking for any instruments, things of that nature that they want to get rid of. And you'd be surprised at all the equipment that they would bring back into the school.
Now.
Yeah, it's important.
We're now going to move to the 2-minute closing statements by the candidates in reverse order from their opening statements. So Lorenzo, you are on.
Thank you. First and foremost, I want to thank my wife and my kids, mom who's watching from San Jose, California online, rest of the family, some of our farm team, Omar is here, and friends who are supporting me in my run for the board. And of course, I'm grateful for all of you, my fellow Santa Fecinos, for being here in person and virtually to listen and consider my candidacy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I also want to thank Hannah, Mary for keeping us on time, and Henry for managing the audiovisual. If after listening to our remarks this evening, reviewing the League's voter guide, there's printed copies out in front, there are digital copies have been distributed everywhere, and reading the relevant articles in the Santa Fe New Mexican, you still can't decide, well, I would say, ask your abuelita, your grandmother. And if she happens to no longer be with us, I say you have two options. One is on November 1st and 2nd, you can honor a tradition that my family holds sacred, and welcome her back spiritually on El Dia de los Muertos. Or I encourage you to simply ask another elder that you respect. And if you happen to be a grandparent and you're undecided, ask your grandchild. My point is, Election Day should not only be an exercise in democracy and your right to make a difference in our community, but it should also be an opportunity for all of us to put aside the electronic devices for a moment and reconnect with family and good friends. Nuestra familia, our community. So have a conversation with your family, your besties, your BFF, and ask why and who you should vote for. Ask your brother, your mom, mija, mijo, sister, brother, what do you think? Who should I vote for? I'm hoping they will all say, vote for Lorenzo Dominguez. Thank you for listening and participating in this important process. God bless you all. Te quiero mucho, Santa Fe.
Lena?
Since I was 17 years old, I've been volunteering in my community, and somehow I always ended up leading a group of volunteers, whether it is to run a math and science career fair or to run a Halloween festival. Since I landed in Santa Fe as a newlywed, most of my community service has been advocating and uplifting education. For the few years, I have to admit, there were a few years where I stayed out of the education and the classroom, and I worked for startup companies here in town. And I realized that I needed an MBA, and so for 2 years I was commuting to UNM to get my MBA, and yes, I'm a logo. Hopefully that helps. I'm the first in my family to go to college. And I'm a trailblazer, I'm a go-getter. Everybody who knows me knows I don't shy away from challenges or conflicts. I'm an out-of-the-box thinker, and I've won awards for being a visionary and a mentor. I'm ready to suggest solutions as a board member, solutions that are rooted in my deep knowledge of the community and the culture of northern New Mexico. Several years ago, I founded STEM Santa Fe, and that was my calling. And I was able to organize hundreds of STEM professionals to mentor thousands of students. Now I'm ready for a higher calling. I'm ready to make system changes in education so that all students, everybody of all ages will thrive, but young adults could make a living, a decent living, and Santa Fe Community College is the place for them to get their skills and their certificates and their degrees. My name is Lena Gurman, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Sarah?
Thank you. So this is a different closing statement than I had planned on. Because I heard some really incredibly wonderful ideas tonight, and the fact is we're doing a lot of them already. And I guess that speaks to the part about being able to market ourselves a little bit better and talk about our successes. So I'm gonna take 2 minutes to try to cram a lot of really awesome stuff into that time. Through the collaboration that I've spoken of, we had a survey from students a few years ago that told us 86% of high school students didn't think the school was relevant. So that was a big eye-opener to us. We also had a survey from NEA, our local union, that said that teachers, 50 to 75% of them were looking at leaving because they were not able to afford housing. So we use research, we use facts to guide our decisions. We've built some incredible community partnerships coming out of COVID. That was really the "it takes a village" message that I felt and has come to fruition, really. We have career pathways and work-based learning programs in our school those are opportunities for our students to be engaged, to be connected, to have real-world experiences, and like I said, more opportunities for them in their future. We've started standard-based instruction district-wide this year. That is to help with equity and ensure proficiency. We started free summer programs last summer to help combat learning loss. and to help parents save money. That's free for all students in Santa Fe Public Schools. We have also started a teacher housing program. We started a child care center for our employees, and that will absolutely help with recruitment and retention. If you'd like to learn more about me, please go to my website, sarahforsantafe.com, and there's also an inquiry form so you can submit ideas, and then we can collaborate more. Thank you.
John?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks again to the league. I really appreciate being here tonight. So I thought I'd just be anecdotal at the end, sort of as a teacher. Teachers, it's a funny profession, you know. You never really see the fruition of what you've done in the classroom. Once in a while you hear from a kid. You know, you see a kid down the road or something, you run into a kid. But very often you don't know where they went and what they're doing now. You know, it's a funny profession that way. You just teach and you have this faith that they're going to go out there and maybe be something and do something with their lives, you know. And you prepare them the best you can. So just anecdotally, I was in a Dunkin' Donuts in Boston late at night one night, and there was this big black kid, this big African-American kid standing in front of me. He turns around and looks at me and he says, "Do you remember me?" And jokingly, I looked at him, I said, "Do I want to?" And he laughs. And he says, "I'm Chris. You don't remember me? I was in your history class junior year." And I said, "Oh my God, Chris, how you doing?" Big hug. It was a great time to see him. And I said, "So what are you doing now?" And he said, "Well, I went to Trinity University. I played football there, and I got a degree in biology." And I'm getting a little choked up because, again, it was tough this way. Because teaching's hard. Teaching's really hard. So anyway, he says, "I had a tryout with the Jets. And I just missed it. I just missed making the 40-man roster. I said, "So what are you doing now?" And he says, "I'm in a PhD program at Boston College." And he says, "It's a biology program, and I'm going to study oncology, cancer research." He says, "especially with the brain." And anyway, I said, "That's great." He turns around the line. He turns back to me and he says, "If it wasn't for you guys," he meant the teaching staff, "if it wasn't for you guys," he said, "I would be dead or in jail." So I think that's why we're all here tonight.
Thank you.
Let me end it with that.
And now, Patricia.
As a native Santa Fean, my father was involved in politics all his life, and both he and my mother were orphans. At a very young age, they educated themselves. They really put in my heart that education is the key to success in life. And they really, really sacrificed for us children. And I have a love, you know, with all my grandchildren, and I volunteered for 15 years in teaching Sunday school. Kids are just beautiful. They absorb everything. They're like little sponges. And I want to be part of a change in our educational system to better equip our children, because the reality is that I see and have talked to many others that we are failing our children in basic skills of reading, writing, and math. You know, our literacy proves it, our low ranking. And in order for children to succeed and become successful adults, education is the core, and I want to be part of that change. So that's why I'm running, and I would really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking all the candidates for their Let's also thank the Santa Fe New Mexican for broadcasting the forum. Henry. The broadcast will be available for future streaming on the New Mexican's website, which is sfnewmexican.com, and on our website, which is lwvsfc.org. Be sure to make your voice heard in this election by voting early or